Okay, so today for the call, I want to walk you guys all through the Zapier implementation process. And what we're going to do, guys, is connect Zapier, or use Zapier to connect MonitorBase to a Google spreadsheet, or really the order we're going to go is Google spreadsheet to MonitorBase, MonitorBase alerts back onto that Google spreadsheet. And so it's a little closed loop system, and then I'm going to teach you how to use the MonitorBase milestone system to process some logic specific to this. I'm going to show you the Google spreadsheet itself. So the Google spreadsheet has, and you should be able to see this, loan officer email, first name, middle name, last name, address, city, state, zip. These are basic fields from MonitorBase. Now, in addition to some of the basic fields, I've added an application date column, a credit pull date column, a funded date column, and a credit denied date column. Not all of these fields will map, so and that's okay. But truthfully, most CRMs are just a kind of a smart automated spreadsheet where it's storing data records out of a table. So loading Zap, we've got this spreadsheet and MonitorBase open, so we should be able to jump between these pretty quick. I've set it all up so that you guys don't have to see me tediously enter data. When you create a new Zap, you show up on a page like this, and you get to choose what is the initial, system that you're pulling from. So you could actually type in Salesforce, right? And Salesforce is a system that does integrate with Zapier. So I could choose Salesforce Legacy, or you could choose HubSpot is an option. So if you're pulling your database out of HubSpot or out of Salesforce, you search them on the list or use their published instructions, and you're able to select HubSpot as the original data source or the CRM. In this case, we're just using a Google Sheet. And so I'm going to show you what this looks like. We've chosen Google Sheet, and then we're going to choose if there is a new spreadsheet row or a new or updated spreadsheet row, grab the data from that field. And then you click Continue, and then you get to choose which spreadsheet you're pulling from. Now, this is kind of like logging in. If we were doing this for Salesforce, I would have chosen Salesforce. I would have said if there's a new or updated prospect. And then when I hit Continue, it would make me log into my Salesforce account on this page. Now, I've already connected us to Google Sheets. And so I'm just going to choose the pre-connected William LeBaron Google Sheet document. And now I get to choose which spreadsheet I want to pull from. In this case, there's a Zap test spreadsheet. I'm going to choose the worksheet, which is sheet 1. And again, this is just data that you would go through, you would be prompted through if you were setting it up for an integration with any CRM. And then from here I hit Continue, and now I actually have everything that I need on the spreadsheet side. It's pulled all of this sample data in for me, and then I hit Continue, and now I get to choose what do I want to do. So I've already defined up here, the logic was, if there's a new column or an update to an existing column, what do I want to do? And then that's where I grab MonitorBase and pull MonitorBase 1.3.2 in. So MonitorBase is now connected. So if there's a new row in that Google spreadsheet, it will feed MonitorBase 1.3.2 and update or create a new prospect. And then I hit Continue. Now, I'm going to go back to the old Zap that I already had because there's a lot of data matching there to watch. So right here, we've done all the work. So you see I have that same setup. But right here, we choose MonitorBase, we say Update, Create, Prospect, and then this is where you log into MonitorBase. Now, I want you guys to see what it looks like to connect MonitorBase for the first time to Zap, so I'm going to add a new MonitorBase account. So when you click Add New Account, or if you hadn't before, it would prompt you to do that as the default. It wants you to grab the API key from your MonitorBase account. Luckily, I've already loaded this up. We are in MonitorBase View Profile for the demo account, and you select this API key. Just copy it. Now, if there wasn't already an API key generated, I would have to click this little blue round arrow refresh thing, and it would generate an API key. But I'm going to take this, I'm going to copy the value, and then going back to this, and you see I went back here. One of the weird things with Zapier is it loads a separate page for this. So if I paste this here and then hit Continue, it will then connect. It'll use the API key to create the connection between MonitorBase and Zapier. Continue, it's going to check, and congratulations, we are now connected. now it pulls in sample data. So this is where I've done all of this legwork for us so you don't have to see. But just so you know, you're connecting. So this is the MonitorBase field, first name, and I'm tying it to the spreadsheet field of first name, or any other value that we want. So first name to first name, middle to middle name, last to last name, email, address, phone contact information. These are tags. Now, you kind of going back to the spreadsheet, there were no tags. There was no tag column here. So I went ahead and added some of our own just for fun. Zapier test, MonitorBase rock. This is how we connect this. So I select a couple of values, update prospect, yes. And in this instance, I set inquiry monitoring as true and predictive monitoring as true. Now, I'm leaving credit migration as blank. Now, I'm not choosing no or false. I'm leaving it blank. This is really important because if you choose false, it will remove monitoring. If you leave it blank, it will neither add nor remove. And that's important, which when we get into the milestone monitoring, you'll see why that's important, because I want to assign migration monitoring based on some milestone rules as opposed to just setting it here. But everyone that comes into the system will go ahead and assign inquiry and predictive monitoring on. Again, pre-mover, we're leaving as blank. Scrolling down, notes we can leave blank. Loan officer email, I am matching up. Now, in this case, loan officer email is how the prospect is going to be assigned. This is how Zapier and MonitorBase decide who this prospect belongs to or which account the prospect should go to. Not all databases actually have loan officer email, but when you're setting this up for a single loan originator, you can also choose to type in the email itself. And that will work just as well as a merge field. So I can actually delete that field, and this will still add that data to the demo account because I'm hard coding in demo as the email. I'm going to keep scrolling here. Interest rate, loan type, loan amount, loan number. There are some things I want to spend some time on because this is kind of important, and that is this funded date. So denied and funded date don't actually line up, so we're going to fix it. So you'll see I'm hard coding denied in this loan status. Now, loan statuses are a little bit tedious, but it's really powerful if we can understand how this works. So what I'm basically saying is if there is a date value here, and I'm going to get rid of funded date because I want that actually to be denied date. So if there is a denied date, then MonitorBase will log a status of denied in the status history for this date value. If there's a credit pull date for loan status 2, MonitorBase, so if there's a credit pull date for 21/20, it will log a credit pull status on that date in the timeline. And then scrolling through custom fields, CRM, alt ID. So that we've now effectively kind of reviewing here. We've connected MonitorBase, the Google Doc, to Zapier. We've connected MonitorBase to the Zapier system so that anytime there's a new row or an updated row in that spreadsheet, and it works the same out of a CRM, it will then give MonitorBase that record. All right, I think that solved it, guys. So now we are turning this on. So we've connected it. Now anytime there's a new row inside of this spreadsheet, it will send that feed to MonitorBase. So I'm going to pull up this spreadsheet. Anytime there's a new row or an update. And go into MonitorBase, there should be some updated records inside of the system. All right, so check this out. So this is the record for George Young. If we kind of go back to this spreadsheet, this is CC Jones and George Young. So George just barely got it, added a new email to his record. So it is working. We do have data coming in, and I'll just kind of minimize that. So the next thing on our list here is connecting MonitorBase alerts back to Zapier. We've already got this kind of programmed out. So again, if you clicked new, it would take you to the field where you chose MonitorBase, and it would prompt us through this. In this instance, we've got MonitorBase. If there's a new alert or a new soft pull, it's two separate systems. But if there's a new alert, this is where you've already got MonitorBase 1.3.2. it finds some data and it'll run a quick test, and then it'll pull a sample alert in. But if we jump into here, we've already said if there's a new alert in MonitorBase, do something. And the something that we're going to do is, in Google Sheets, we're going to create a new spreadsheet row. I guess we could create or update a new spreadsheet row, but we'll create a new spreadsheet row. We're going to choose the account. It's the Google spreadsheet account that we've already done. Again, imagine Google Spreadsheets is your CRM. And then from here, you're going to customize that row. So then we've already chosen, this is we've connected it to mine. We've chosen the Zap test Google Sheet, Sheet 1, and then we're matching up. Loan officer email, and in the MonitorBase alert is going to match the loan officer email column inside of inside of the spreadsheet. First name to first name. Right here, we hadn't matched up middle name, so if we search, see, there's no middle name data. It's kind of a thing that happens with our alert posts. We don't feed middle name as part of the alert. So we can just leave it blank. It doesn't matter. The minimum criteria here is actually non-existent. It would depend on the CRM. Some CRMs might require email in order to make a post. But we go through, we've matched up name, address, city, state, zip, phone, contact, all of the data fields. And actually, I'm going to refresh this because since I've set this up, we actually have some new fields that I've added. So there's application date, there's credit pull date, there's funded date, and there's denied date. None of these are data that feeds out of the alert post. So our alerts aren't going to make any changes here. But if we're done editing, we can actually turn this on, and it will now feed our system. Now, I kind of want to go through here and do a quick test, and I'll show you. So kind of take a look at this. We've got demo at MonitorBase, CC A. Jones, G-Raj A. Young. If I hit test on this, test and review, it runs a quick test. And if we go back here, look, it added a new record to the spreadsheet. And then if I go again to the system and I hit test again, it'll add another record. So kind of tying it back together, at this point, your Zapier integration works both ways. Anytime there's a new row in that spreadsheet, it'll post that row into MonitorBase. Anytime there's a new alert in MonitorBase, it'll post that alert into the spreadsheet. And so you can see this is going to update dynamically back and forth. Now, I want to show you the milestone rules, because theoretically, this system there's additional logic you can put into place once you have this system running. And we've talked about the milestones, but I want to cover it because this really is a really important part to the logic of automation. So I'm going to set up some rules here, and I've actually already made a couple of rules. There's block your own credit pools, there's enable migration monitoring on denials, and there's enable pre-mover on funded. So I'm going to choose, so you can see this is a blocking rule, and this is a monitoring rule. So these are those active buckets that you create. So this is where I typed in enable migration on denial and hit save, and it created one of these. So this is just a label for what is a bucket down here. So I'm going to choose a bucket, and I'm going to choose enable pre-mover on funded. So when I choose that, then I choose pre-mover here. So a new monitoring rule says in this bucket, enable pre-mover for 0 equals infinity. All right, so 0 equals infinity. So now we have a bucket that says monitor pre-mover forever whenever something happens. And that something is funded in this case. So kind of going back here, if there is a funded date fed to this system for 5/22/20, inside of our little milestone blocking rules, it will now log that funded status inside of the MonitorBase timeline. We'll see this is the timeline, or the status timeline. So you can see additional email found is this thing that shows up here. This is where things like funded date will be logged. Application date, denial date. So you're going to see denied 2 days ago in this. So what that essentially says is if you get a funded status, is what we're choosing here. So I'm adding the status to this rule. Anytime there's a funded status added to a prospect, enable pre-mover monitoring. Which the reason you would want to do that, just so you guys know, you don't really want pre-mover on all of your prospects. Pre-mover is really specific to the property being listed for sale. So generally you only want pre-mover on people that you know the address is accurate. And on funded customers, that's a great time to enable that monitoring. Now, enabling migration monitoring for denials is kind of the same process here. You would choose migration, or you would choose the bucket, enable migration on denial. You would choose migration as the monitoring type, and you would say enable migration forever. And then you would assign the correct status. And then the last one here, the logic we can follow, we can say block, alerts on your own credit pools. And we want to block inquiry. So this is not a monitoring role, it's a blocking role. And I want to block inquiry for, say, 5 days around or after we get a certain status. Because you don't want to block inquiry forever. You just want to say if there is an application status on one of these prospects, don't deliver an inquiry alert for the following couple of days. And doing that effectively says anytime that someone in this spreadsheet has a credit pool date or an application date, then go ahead and turn off inquiry monitoring for a couple of days thereafter. And it will stop them from getting inquiry alerts on their own credit pools. So that's kind of the training system as far as the full loop. You go from being able to connect all of the systems together so that data off of this spreadsheet feeds into MonitorBase, MonitorBase alerts feeds back into the spreadsheet, and from there we get to use some of the additional data we got in the form of these dates to set some rules around what kind of monitoring they want. Now, following this process that we just set up would effectively say if we get a prospect in here and we get a credit pool date, we will block an alert on their own credit pool. If we get a funded date, we'll go ahead and enable pre-mover monitoring. And remember, in the Zap, we've already enabled inquiry and predictive. So now you've got the 3 kinds of monitoring you want on a funded client. Now, if they're denied, you can then enable credit migration monitoring. And now you've got inquiry, predictive, and credit migration, which is fine because you can't get a you can't get a predictive alert on someone below your credit criteria or an inquiry alert. So by doing that, you're going to be in front of that person really once they fix their credit. And that gives you an introduction and kind of a step-by-step how-to for the Zapier integration and the Milestone Rules.